Every organization has a culture.
It already exists.
But you may not have created it intentionally.
No, and it may not be healthy.
And if it's not, then it's not going to be contagious.
Right, because the people within your culture may not want to be there.
So how do you build a contagious culture? You could think about it this way, Jason, when we talk about churches and the mission of the church on the planet, we're making disciples, right? We're reaching people, we're calling them into something. You could call that a culture, a system of values, a system of rituals, practices, habits that create a context where people can grow and become disciples of Jesus.
Sure. And I've heard it said that, culture eats strategy for breakfast, right? And I think what they're getting at there is just that you can have all of the right things in place. You could even have your mission statement and your vision statement, and you could even have some values. We're going to talk about core values here today and how those can create culture, but you could have a lot of that written and a lot of that done. And yet the actual culture, the way people actually are interacting, the way people are thinking is going to take that strategy. It's always going to be a trump card towards that strategy.
And beyond that, if your culture doesn't match what you're telling the world that you are, if your culture doesn't live up to the expectation that you're setting when you're reaching out to the world, when people come in and experience the real culture, you will have just shot yourself in the foot.
Right. And I liken that to like if you were going to open a Mexican restaurant and you didn't have good salsa. First, you got to get good salsa because marketing a Mexican restaurant with terrible salsa is the fastest way to kill that new restaurant. But let's imagine if you had really great salsa. Here's my hypothesis. If no one who made the salsa enjoyed making the salsa, they all hated it. They hated working for you, but you're like, but this is the best recipe ever. It's the most important recipe ever. My grandma gave it to me, whatever. I think I could feel it in the atmosphere. I might enjoy the salsa, but I'm like, there's something about this place. But the other side of that same coin is if those who make the salsa love making the salsa, then I don't care what your salsa is. It could be communion on a Sunday. It could be dental implants. It could be new cars. It could be anything. I think your organization is going to grow if those who are making it, building it, doing it, love it, because they're going to be at home on Thanksgiving or on Christmas and they're talking to their aunt and uncle and they're going to say, what are you up to today? Oh, it's crazy. I'm making salsa. And I know it sounds silly. And I promise you, I'm not in a cult, but I just love this. I love making this stuff. And then that's going to spread that you're not going to be able to contain the growth of that secret sauce. And so I think when you mentioned church, and we've had the privilege of helping hundreds now of churches, I think the church in the 20th century got really good at making salsa. We got really good at making church. But I wonder if at some point we started forgetting that the secret sauce is really those who make the secret sauce.
I think a lot of the people that we're working with and talking with, and if you're watching this video, I can guess this about you, that you have a big vision. You've got an inspiring vision. And the people the team around you that you're working with, helping make that happen, they're bought into that vision because you are good at selling that vision. They're in it. But that's not the whole picture. That's not the whole culture there, because you're going to rely on those people a lot. And the question is, are the people you rely on the most burning out? Are they dropping out of that vision? Not because they didn't like the vision, but because there was a missing component there that made it something that they could sink their teeth into and stay there for the long haul.
Right. So what we're wanting to talk about, what we're all really wanting to create is a culture that people want to be a part of, a contagious culture, one that not only do I like being a part of it, but man, you should be a part of this too.
Yeah, and I think there's some components there that you're going to need in a culture that allows people to thrive and to be contagious at that level. Todd Henry in Herding Tigers talks about two things that a creative team needs. And I think everybody's a creative, so I think this applies to everyone.
Yeah.
But you need stability and challenge. And you need them both. And I think we could translate those words a little bit. Stability, I think what you're really talking about is a sense of safety. You need a sense that it's safe here, that there's a community, that it's okay to fail. It's okay to make a mistake. I'm not on edge all the time. There's not unnecessary stress. There's not unnecessary pressure. There's not unnecessary frustrations. The expectations are not ambiguous. I have a sense of safety and stability, which I think this need has elevated in the current era with the pandemic.
Yes.
Anxiety is higher than ever. And so if we can create on our teams something that adds to their sense of safety rather than pulls away from it, well, then people will lean in.
Right.
The other side of it, though, is what we might call purpose, that they want to find a place and a team and a culture that they can lean in and know that we're doing meaningful work here. And I am set up to win. I am set up to do my best work. I think everybody desires that. They want to do their best work. They want to grow. They want to expand. They want to be stretched.
Yeah.
They don't want unnecessary stress, but they do want a chance to stretch and show the world what they can do.
I love that, because what you're talking about is building a culture of trust, right? I trust that you have my best intentions, right? You've got my back. And and then I can be my best and I can make mistakes. So there's this culture of trust, but then we're also doing something that is going to be bigger than the 2 of us or the 10 of us or the 40 of us. This is bigger than just us. But that challenge can't be a trump card for the trust and the safety, which often it can be like, hey, don't you know, we're doing a big thing here. That was an impression of somebody who would say such things. I don't know. But you know, like sometimes you say, so therefore you need to sacrifice you for the sake of this big thing that we're doing. And I think as leaders, if we talk to leaders for a second, I think we've played that card a lot. So I think in this market, and whether you're in the nonprofit or in the for-profit world, where we're talking about how the workforce doesn't want to work anymore. Or does the workforce not want to be in an environment where they're taken advantage of anymore? And guess what? They don't have to be in an environment where they're taken advantage of anymore. They want to be in an environment that's built on trust and care and also doing something big. They still want to do big things. They're still willing to work hard, but you've got to create both. How do you do that?
So most organizations have written down somewhere a set of core values.
Right.
Sometimes they're on the wall.
Not all organizations, but most.
Not all. Sometimes they're on the wall. But if you have an organization that can define core values and live them out and enforce them into their systems so that the systems actually support those core values, then you have the basis for a culture that is healthy, consistent, and
so even sorry, I'm interrupting you.
Please.
Even in a culture where they're not written down, there's still values at play in that culture. A lot of times it'll be the values that the leader, the entrepreneur, the church planter, the lead pastor, the CEO, that they just kind of embody those. So they can come in and maybe they're the center of most conversations. That culture is hard to sustain with growth. You might have a healthy culture, but with a small team, but as you grow, which is the goal most of the time, as you grow, the first thing to go out is the culture. Why? Because it was never handed off. And not just handed off with words on a wall, because words on a wall does not core values make, right? It's got to get down into the systems and into the habits. So today, what we'd like to do is go through some of the core values that have emerged. I call it emerged. I know you and I have written a lot on it and have taught on it, but they're really the values that the culture has made at ArtSpeak. But also I want to talk, because you don't have to use our core values. That is not what this video is about. But maybe some of the habits. So here's the value, and then maybe some of the habits that we've seen that actually get that value at play.
Yeah. And so for us to jump right in, as a foundation for all of our core values, we start with the statement, this is about people.
That core value number 1, foundational. This is about people.
And that's important for us. This is not about profit. This is not about even some mission that we define. In fact, our mission is reach people. So it starts there. But I think to your point earlier, where there's that big mission, and I think a lot of churches can fall into this, where why did we start a church? We started a church to reach people. And so it was about that vision of the people out there. But for us, we had to come back and say, okay, yes, it is about them. It is about the people out there. As an agency, it's also about the people that we get to partner with, the life changers in our clients that we get to partner with. But it's also about our team.
That's right.
And we can't, in fact, if we don't take care of our team, we won't be able to reach people. But if we do take care of our team, and we take care of each other, then as a team, we can then take care of others.
I would take it even one more step further. It's about me. It's about you. It's about those of you that are watching this. Like, you're a people. Welcome to the party. Like, but seriously, as a leader, your first task is to lead you well. It's about you. Are you healthy? Are you thriving? Are you living a life that others, if they lived according to the patterns and the principles and the rhythms of your life, they too would thrive, right? And then, because that's, guess what? That's the disciple. That's the leaders that you're going to raise up. So now that you're living healthy, now let's create some systems and health and guidelines and encouragement to help those around you live healthy, your team.
And so for us to put that into practice, that means that's going to play out into habits and systems that protect the things that people, human beings, need to thrive, to be healthy, like boundaries. We talk a lot about boundaries and celebrate the setting of boundaries. That, like, hey, you can decide when you're going to be done at the end of the day. And when you're done, you're done. We're not expecting you to keep checking in on email and Slack and messages. To support that idea that rest is, in fact, mandated by God, no less, and necessary for human thriving.
That one goes way, way back. I remember a story. This happened to me in the past. No names. All the names have been deleted to protect the innocent. I got a phone call. I had been at a coffee shop writing a message that I hoped would reach people. And I got a phone call on my cell phone from my boss. And that phone call said, "Where are you?" And I said, "Well, I just left the coffee shop. I'm headed back to the office." And they said, "Well, you haven't been in your office." I said, "I know, I was in the coffee shop. I'm headed back to the office." So I know, but what if we needed to reach you? And I said, "Well, we're talking on the phone right now. And I just let you know that I'm headed back to the office." Now, that was a different mindset. And that was a few years ago. But I do think sometimes there's a couple of mindsets, like, you've got to be in an office. And I know there are some watching that, yes, you have to be in an office, right? So, but there's some of you that are leading others. What's more important, somebody being in an office or always accessible or available outside of business hours? Like, and maybe your line of work needs some accessibility. Regardless, you're still going to need boundaries. Huge fan. If you haven't read any of the Cloud and Townsend series on boundaries, #read that, right? But you're going to need to set some boundaries. What are some of the boundaries that you think have really created health and trust, that trust, that love, this is about people, so that our team has felt, wow, they've got my best interest in mind? What do you think some of the boundaries we've set at ArtSpeak?
Yeah, as already mentioned, we think that people need rest. That's not negotiable, and that you can't be on all the time. And so what we've had to repeatedly support is the idea that you can and should set boundaries. You should decide. You should let us know, I'm going to be done today at 4 p.m. I'm going to log off, and stick to it. And we also do this with our clients, where we say, we have these timelines that we've set. And so if it's 2 weeks on this particular kind of work that you're asking for, we're going to stick to that, rather than say, oh, team, the client needed this and they need it by Saturday night. Can we work a little extra? Can we push and work on Saturday and get it done? That doesn't set up a healthy pattern. And what we found is that our clients, although initially not liking that idea, they've come back and thanked us for that example.
Right.
So that they could bring that as part of their culture internally and recognize the health that it brings.
I think one of the things that we were even talking about earlier today, even it came up where we ask our team, is this possible? So it's not that new ideas are never going to happen, right? Epiphanies happen. But we're now going to submit that to the bandwidth of our team. Here's an idea. No shortage of good ideas. Here's another idea. Is this possible on this time frame? And if it's not, then it's not. So it's about people. That's a foundational one. Now I love the next one because I think it has played out in ways that I never would have imagined when we first started talking about gratitude. Gratitude is our operating system. Tell us about that turn of phrase.
Well, we use the term operating system because I love the neuroscience that's involved in this concept. That you have 3 operating systems, 3 ways that your nervous system can operate in day-to-day life. You have your ventral system. That is when your nervous system is accessing all of your brain and you are able to engage well with others. You have full access to your creative potential. But when you are stressed out, or when you are afraid, or when you are nervous, any of these things, you can retreat into your sympathetic nervous system mode. That's your fight or flight mode. And in that mode, you only have access to a fraction of your brain power. Your creative options shrinks to fight about this or run away from this. And we could talk more about that. But the principle...
I don't think we do. I think most people get that, right? If you're a creative and anybody's ever walked in and said, hey, I need this by Friday or by the end of the day, or you make these 17 changes and you're like, I want to run.
Yeah, that going to short circuit your ability to be creative, and to find great solutions. And so to push yourself back into a mode where you can access all of that, you can start by practicing gratitude. And there is so much research about this. There is little that you could do with a greater return on investment to your brain power, your mental health, your physical health than practicing gratitude for 5 minutes. But you can take that to another level by practicing it with others, by practicing it with a team. And so our habit, we start every meeting by expressing gratitude to one another. And what that does, if someone starts expressing gratitude to someone else, you now realize maybe you felt alone before. Now you say, oh no, I'm a part of a team. And it's as you practice it, you realize, okay, yeah, I was stressed out, but now I realize there's other people who are doing great things around me. And that is so helpful. Of course, as they receive that gratitude, it's helpful for them. It's also psychologically, they've studied this. It is also good for everybody else in the room. Even if they weren't a giver of gratitude or a direct recipient of that gratitude, they are told in that moment, oh, I'm in a place that appreciates other people. I'm in a team.
This is a safe place, back to what we were talking about at the beginning. I love that. And I tell you what, it has been a breath of fresh air, the culture, being a part of meetings that start with gratitude or wins, but really when the team starts talking about those gratitudes towards one another and starts championing what other people on the team have done. Like, it feels good. We have a meeting, we have a weekly team meeting, and literally half of it is just gratitudes, and the momentum of community and culture that I think that has created is pretty phenomenal. So I'm a huge fan of gratitude. It's hard to sin and be grateful at the same time. Now we have some creatives watching, so they're going to figure it out. But no, seriously, I love gratitude.
Well, and then psychologically studied, gratitude also improves your ability to practice empathy.
Which leads us right into our third core value, empathetic honesty.